Okay, definitely.
Let's know a bit about you. Who is Prosper?
So I'm a software engineer. Started a company called Eden Life. Eden Life is in Nigeria, it's in Lagos, and it's also in Kenya. And Eden Life is a company that basically takes care of your chores, laundry, cleaning, food, puts it on a subscription, and then you can just pay a certain amount of money every month, and then you can have that delivered to you to have your laundry done once a week or twice a week or once a month, have your cleaning done, and then you can also order food as well. Also, if you have events, you can use Eden. So basically, the plan for Eden is to be that one-stop shop, or basically that marketplace for you to be able to put anything on subscription. But for now, it is home services, food, cleaning, laundry. We plan to expand to like pharmacy and all of those different other categories. Yeah, so started that company in 2019. So it's already almost 6 years already. I can't even believe it. So I lead engineering and technology at Eden. I've been a co-founder there. Before that, I've been a DevRel, developer advocate. Started communities like Folloop. I was the co-founder of Folloop. Some of you here might have heard of Folloop. It's no longer existing, but back then, like Folloop was the community, that everybody joined. We used to do a lot of meetups across different African countries. I've also worked for a couple of companies abroad. I've worked for Zero. I've worked for Railway. I've worked for SourceGraph, like as a developer advocate, as an open source engineer, and all of those different things. So basically, that's it. And then I'm also like an investor. I'm not an investor right now, so please don't send me any ideas. There's no money right now. But 4 years ago, I used to be like an active startup investor. I've invested in over like 25 companies. Bitnop2 is one of those companies I invested in when Bitnop2 was like starting. So it's glad to see what Bitnob has become right now. So yeah, so that's basically the summary of myself. That's basically what I do.
Awesome. It's giving Odogu Parana vibe. Right. Right. For quite a number of people who are building companies, I'm sure there's an inspiration behind it. So for us at BitNob, when you ask Bernard, for example, what's the inspiration behind you wanting to build a platform like BitNob, he's going to tell you about the struggle he has faced in having to convert crypto into Naira, right? For you building Eden Life, what was the inspiration? Was it from a point of need or from a point of you see somebody, you've seen a couple of people who you feel like they need this and you want to build for them? Or were you one of those people who had the problem and you're solving it for yourself first before like taking it out?
I think it's a combination of both. I had a problem. My co-founder Nad. So I used to work at Andela. For some of you that don't know Andela, Andela is a company. Andela has evolved over time, but back then Andela was a company that used to train African developers to become like world-class engineers. And I was one of the early employees at Andela. Like Andela started in 2014. I joined in November. So I joined when Andela was basically like 3 or 4 months old. So I was like one of the early employees. And my co-founder of Eden right now was the one that hired me back then. So at Andela, when we trained people to become engineers and they grew, some of them left the company, some of them started working remotely. So when I left Andela, I also left Andela to start with a company that everybody uses for auth if you don't want to roll your own auth before they got acquired by Okta. And I had a lot of people like me too. My co-founder, a lot of us that were software engineers working in Lagos, right? Working remotely, right? Some people were doing multiple jobs, and we know that like nobody likes doing laundry, So that was just the idea. My co-founder came to me and said, "You look, we always have different people that we call for these things, right? Child deck was not even a thing back then. There was no child deck, right? It used to be Jumia and Co. So it was a rudimentary recruit space. So that's what we call Eden back then. Like, you know what? Instead of having to like have different people for your AC, for your laundry, what if you just have a company that you can trust, and they just do this thing for you? They take care of it. The customer care can call you. You get deliver all of that, and that's where the idea came from, because we needed it first, and then we talked to other tech people like us that needed it. So that's how we started the company, basically.
Awesome. So you got validation from other people also, and knowing that that's a need you also
Yes,
have for yourself. Great. So let's talk about the
exactly.
conversation, Tech Nation. Uh, for quite a number of people right now, the goal is to live quite a better life. I mean, we totally understand what happens within the Nigerian context in terms of the economy, the opportunity. For you, you were a startup founder. You were absolutely earning above average. You know, the average person. What motivated you to apply for the technician visa?
Well, as a startup founder, I'm poor. Let me just put that out there because startup founders don't really earn money, except the companies start really making a lot of money. But as in, yeah, working for companies abroad, I was earning like a lot of money, like real bank. So, but one of the things that motivated me to apply for technician was because of visa. Like, I'm in Nigeria. I can see that we have other people on the call, Kenya, Ethiopia, like other African countries have better passports than Nigerians. I feel like Nigerians, as a Nigerian, unless you have maybe from Somali or Sudan, right? Like as a Nigerian, your passport is like one of the worst passports, right? And when you apply for visas, say you want to go for a conference in France or Netherlands or in the UK, UK is too easy. But when you want to go apply for a Schengen visa or apply for an American visa, people kept getting like rejected. For me personally, I got rejected for Schengen visa 3 times. I had different opportunities to come and speak. I had an opportunity to come and do like a workshop. So back then, I really needed to move because I was going to the US a lot. Like I did not have a problem getting US visa, right? But I was having problem getting Schengen visa. There was a time I also needed to go to an Asian country. I needed to go to Singapore, right? And now when you look at crypto, for example, like almost the crypto headquarters where people are having meetings all the time in Singapore. People are having in Singapore, in Dubai, in like all these really nice places. But I couldn't get visa because they did not believe that I was going to come back. So I was just like, you know what? I need an opportunity to be able to like at least, live somewhere else and still be able to come to Nigeria back and forth, that kind of stuff, right? So that was the problem. And that was when I was talking to my friends, one of my senior colleagues was just like, hey, Prosper, just apply, right? Like even if you get it, you can decide not to go if you want to. And but at least get it. Let that be an option for you. So that was my motivation to apply. My motivation is like, at least let me have an opportunity where if I wanted to apply for visa, instead of applying from Nigeria, I can apply from the UK, this second place where I'm living, or I have access to live, or the right to live and rent. When I apply from there, there won't be any problem. And truthfully, since I got my technician visa, every visa I've applied for, I have always gotten it, right? And I've applied for a lot of visas. So fast, I get it, no problem. In fact, less than 2 weeks. Like in Nigeria, when you apply, you wait for 3 weeks. Sometimes you fast and pray. Sometimes you go to church to give a testimony. It's ridiculous. But here in the UK, once you apply, there's literally 99% chance that you always get the visa, right? Because
Awesome.
as long as you have, the ability to live there, show them the proof of address, show them your bank statement and all of that, they will give you. But in Nigeria, that's not the case. So that was your cost for me applying. And that's why I really went the route of the global talents. And also I needed something that would not stress me. Because I was looking at different countries. I saw US, I was looking at all the documents, all the legal stuff. But UK's own was just really kind of straightforward. Right. And I was just like, I'm just going to apply. And that's what I did. So that was my motivation, basically.
Oh, great. So for context, for people who are listening, there are more than probably 100 opportunities for you to travel to like different countries. Different countries have their own nomad visa. US has their own, I think it's B1 visa, right? But the context of this
I have
conversation
a D visa.
is on the UK Global Talent Visa. So Promise, when you applied, did you apply as an exceptional talent or an exceptional promise?
I applied as an exceptional talent.
Awesome.
Because for an exceptional talent, it simply means after 3 years, you can be able to have what you call ILR, indefinite leave to remain, which is settlement in the UK, right? For promise, you have to at least do 5 years, right? After 5 years, you can now apply to settle in the UK. But for exceptional talents, after 3 years, you can now apply. And as at then, I really had everything to apply for exceptional talent, right? Like I was already kind of like a leader in the community. I'd done a lot of things. I was a senior engineer. So that was just the route I took. I took exceptional talent, and like that worked for me.
Awesome. So, exceptional talent you were able to get in. Was it your first time? Because quite a number of people have to try it like 2 times, 3 times. Was it the first time you applied that you got your visa?
Yeah, mine was pretty straightforward. I applied in 2020, 2022. I applied early 2022. Was it early 2022? Or no, I applied late 2021. Yes. I applied late 2021, right? And I applied because when you want to apply for this global talent, you have to apply for an endorsement first, right? So they have to give you an endorsement. So when they give you an endorsement, once they give you an endorsement, it's that endorsement you're now going to use to apply for the visa. So you go through the process of applying for the endorsement, you put your documents together, and I did that, and I got my endorsement in a week. I don't know, mine was special. I don't know why. I think I applied on a Monday, I got mine on a Thursday, which is abnormal because now I know that it takes at least 3 to 6 weeks, right? 3 to 6 weeks. So the list now for you to get an endorsement is 3 weeks. They'll go through your documents and everything. And I think the rules are also stricter now, right? Like these days they check documents, they check your references. Your references must be signed by DocuSign. They go through it a lot, like because I feel like they've seen a lot of people that just applied anyhow. So they made the process stricter, right? But I'm sure we get into what you need to apply. But I'm
Yes.
just saying that like I applied back then, and it was like it took me 1 week to get the endorsement. And then when I got the endorsement, I did a tuberculosis test, and then I applied for the visa.
Awesome. So we can just dive straight into it right now. By the way, 76% of the people that are currently on this call that registered for this session have less than 4 years experience. So they are not qualified for exceptional talents. They are exceptional promise. So I know the requirement that you add during your own registration is quite different from what they would need, but at least
Okay.
they're quite similar. So what would you say are the requirements for a software engineer to first apply for this global talent visa?
Okay, so there are three ways you can go about it. You can either be the founder of a company, right? Like maybe you have a company that you've started, right? A registered company, because you have to be able to prove that it's registered. Like you have to apply, add the certificate of registration, incorporation, you have to add the bank statements and all of those different things. So you can either be the founder of a company, or you can either be a software engineer in a product-led company. And I'm very specific about the product-led company because there are people that have worked in different organizations. Like, for example, you have worked in a consulting firm, right? Or you have worked in like a school, or you have worked in somewhere as a software engineer, but it is not a product-led company, right? For example, BitNob is a product-led company, right? Um, Eden is a product-led company, but some people look at Eden as a food company. So you have to make sure it is a tech company that is product-led, right? Exactly. MavaPay is a product-led company. Any fintech company by default is a product-led company. Any AI company is a product-led company. That your company, just make sure your company has a core product. If it has a core product that is selling, for example, like a mobile app, a website, and it has a core product that people use, and you build and iterate on that, that is a product-led company. So again, because I've seen people apply, so I had a close friend that applied from his company, but they had to reject him because they said his company where he worked, and he's a senior engineer. In fact, he's a very senior engineer, and he was a senior product person so as well. But they denied him because they said the company is not a product-led company. So make sure it's a product-led company, right? So if you are applying for a bank, it's not a product-led company. Sorry to say. A bank is not a product-led company. So if you are saying you worked in Zenith Bank, they might deny you. No, the company can be anywhere. It can be in Nigeria, it can be anywhere, as long as it's a company. Consulting firm is not a product-led company. Again, I've said it. Consulting firm is not a product-led company. They will just deny you. It has to be a company that is a product-led company, a fintech company, an AI company, a company that is building financial product, a company that is building, as long as it has a core product. MTN product. MTN feels like if a fintech, I think MTN can classify as a product company, but you guys get what I'm saying, right? Exactly, like a startup or a company that has been known for a core product. Yeah, so it has to be a product company. So you have, and when you work for a product company, you have to now get the evidence that you worked in that company. So, for example, what did you work on, right? Is proof of like you contributing to the product. So maybe like GitHub repositories, GitHub screenshot of GitHub commits, recommendations from your bosses, like endorsement from your bosses. If you had any promotion within that company, bring the promotion letter together, add it as part of your evidences. If you have Slack conversations, that shows that people like the work that you do, add it to. Anything that is kind of also verifiable, right? But anything that people can see and say, okay, it looks like this person really contributed to this product. Maybe it is commits, maybe it is GitHub repositories, maybe your name is in the change log, if it's a mobile app. If you can also screenshot like the code itself that shows that this, yes, open source counts, but I'll get to that. So product-led company. So you have to show evidence that contributed to that. Now, so I've talked about you starting a company and using that product-led company. Then the last one is open source. Open source is the easiest, right? If you have built, for example, packages for companies, I used to be very active in open source. I'm still kind of active, but not as much. Back then, I used to be very active in the Laravel world. I built tons of packages that people were using. So I just added all of that, right? So when you add open source, at least open source, anybody can see it. Anybody can go into GitHub and check it. Exactly. I built the Paystack SDK. I added it. I built Cloudinary SDK that everybody using. I added it. I built so many others, right? I added all those things. And those things are verifiable. People will just go and check and see, wow, and see the number of downloads, and see the number of people using it, and see the number of commits, saw the number of stars. I also had repositories, for example, Awesome Next.js, right? Is one of the most popular Next.js repositories on GitHub. And I created that, right? I created that immediately Next.js came out back then. I was one of those people that started like looking at Next.js when it first came out. So that was a very popular repository. I added it. So when they saw it, they were like, oh, this guy is really active in the open source world, right? So if you have open source contributions like that, you can just go straight to open source. Now, it can be open source in terms of code, or it can be open source in terms of like community. Again, I was doing everything. Sorry, I was jack of all trades back then. Now I'm getting older. I'm kind of like, entering, narrowing it. But then I was also speaking at a lot of conferences. Like I spoke at BuzzJS in the US. I spoke at React JS in London. I spoke at different Google events in Nigeria. I spoke at Google events in Kenya. I spoke in South Africa. So and thankfully, all of those recordings were on YouTube. So I just went to YouTube, carried all those links. I put it so you can check it yourself. Put all the links for all my speaking engagements. I put all the links for everything. The one I did in Abuja, the one I did in Lagos, the one I did in Kenya, the one I did in South Africa, the one I did in the US, the one I did in the UK. I just put everything. In fact, I'm thinking maybe because of all of those things, that's why my endorsements came out very fast. Because they looked at all these things and said, this is the kind of person we want,
I can
right?
imagine.
And he just approved it. So if you are an open source person, you've done a lot of community work, you can go that route. Like you can just focus on that community, take all your contributions, put it in the document, and boom. But if you are not doing open source, if you are working in the company, right, then you have to prove that you're contributing to the product in that company. You're a top person, right? The tools that you use, your GitHub, stuff that you have set up, evidence of promotion, evidence of maybe your manager giving you recommendations, all of those different things. Then, of course, in the document, you talk about the product that was built, how you contributed to the product, how you were, and it's not just normal contributions, like how you were very important to that product, like getting to the next level, or that product becoming a product. Do you get?
Awesome.
Yeah. So DevOps too, same thing. DevOps, like as a DevOps, you set up, right? You set up environments in like AWS or set up environments in Google Cloud or stuff for your company to run. So you can, as long as you can prove it, like what scripts did you set up? What environment did you set up? What did you set up for the continuous integration? What did you set up for deployment? Were you the release manager and all of those different things? You have to take that proof and put everything together in a document, right? A document that you know that if you're the one reviewing this document, you are able to look at it and say, okay, I can believe that this guy did this work.
Awesome.
Because again, what started happening when people were applying is that when we applied back then, we got it. A lot of people started applying too. So people were making things up, right? People were lying. And of course, the people reviewing these things will catch up to it, like, you people are lying about these things, right? So they started just rejecting people until they have like very good proof that you did this thing, right? Because they will also check your LinkedIn, they will check different things. Sometimes they will call people to verify. And now it has become stricter. But I know the one that is very easy to verify is open source. If you have been an open source or a community person, so easy. But if you're a product person, make sure you can prove it. Certificates, well, I don't know if certificates help. It might help, but I don't think I've seen anybody that just added certificates and that was the reason why they got it. Like, because anybody can do certificates, right? Maybe if you add it, it can also boost it, right? but they want to really show they want to really show that you're really good at what you do, right? Because again, let's not forget, it is global tech talent, right? Global tech talent. So they don't just want a normal person that is just trying to survive. They want somebody that is either in top 1% or somebody that in a few years, when they look at this person, they say this person is really good, right? This person has contributed to the growth of stuff. Do you get what I'm saying?
Awesome.
So
Great.
yeah.
I mean, that's a masterclass. For everybody who is listening, I'm sure they've been able to pick up quite a number of things. And you spoke about documentation. And all of these things you've said, how long did it take you to bring together all of the documentation?
Oh, mine took a week. I took a week to gather everything. Again, I was adding all sorts of things because at that point I already started Eden. At that point, I'd done open source, I'd done community. So I can remember that the PDF I submitted was about 50 pages.
Wow.
Even when I looked at that PDF, I said, this is a lot. But I think that was what also helped me, right? Because I'm sure they were looking at it. My speaking engagement PDF was about 3 pages alone. So they must have looked at it and say, okay, I think this is the person that we need. Or maybe they were tired and say, let's just give this guy, I don't know. But you have to be detailed, like add as many things as possible, right? Okay, during my time, we didn't use DocuSign then. During our time, when you get the recommendations, people can just sign it and send. We didn't use DocuSign. It was like a year after or 2 years, they started doing the DocuSign thing, where when you get your recommendation from people, you have to upload it to DocuSign and make sure and now invite your mentor, whoever is recommending you to do the DocuSign, right? Because they wanted to see, because at some point, some people were forging people's signature, which is human beings, right? So they wanted to see the trail of the signatures to be sure that it is the person that recommended you that actually signed the recommendation letter. So that's why they started DocuSign.
Great. So let's dive deep into evidence and documentation. One of the most
Okay.
important things during the application for global talent is your personal statement, right? A couple of people will say that should be the last thing you should put together when you're submitting your application. For you, how did you structure your personal statement and what did you focus on when putting together your personal statement?
So my personal statement, I just told them like the kind of things I can offer the UK, right? I told them the things I've done in Nigeria and in Kenya, in Nairobi. And I said, hey, like if I'm able to get into the UK, these are the things I can do, right? I can start up communities in the UK. I can get a lot of people to start coding. I can also develop communities. I also said that like if I'm in Kenya, if I'm in UK, I'll also be able to join UK companies to be able to upgrade the level of expertise that we have in the UK and contribute to open source products. So I just looked at myself and say, this thing that I can do now, how can I offer it to the UK? So that's basically what you should do in your personal statement. Like, what can you offer? But honestly, again, be honest. There's no need to lie. If you lie and they catch you and they reject it, it doesn't help anybody. So look at yourself. What can you offer? Right? So those are the things you write in your personal statements. Like, I'm from Nigeria. I've done this for this company. I've done this for this company. And this is why I'm applying. I'm applying for UK because I believe that these are the things I can do in the UK, right? And one thing I know that people do in the UK, people do volunteer work, right? So you can also add it in, like, hey, when I get to the UK, I can do a lot of volunteer work to be able to train people to learn opportunities in tech. I can train people to be able to learn software engineering or to learn DevOps work. I can train people to do blah, 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 blah. I can start communities. I can start, I can start conferences. I can develop open source work that will help the homeless. Like, just think of those kind of opportunities. Those are the things that you write in your personal statement. Personal statement that when you do it and you read it to yourself or you get your friend to read it to you, you too can believe in that personal statement. And again, the best thing is honesty. Be honest. What are the things I can provide, right? If I enter the UK and just put it in your personal statement. That's it.
Awesome. The next question would be that quite a number of people, and I've seen this online, even within the chat, I've seen people who are introverts, who don't go out to speak. They just want to sit down,
Yeah.
their house code, get job done. How important is a software developer's online presence into getting this global talent visa? Does it break or make them?
In my opinion, no. I mean, it's easier if you're an extrovert, but if you're an introvert, that's why I started with product-led company. I have friends that nobody knows online, but they are really good at what they do, and they worked at product-led company. So all they needed to do was use the product-led company approach. Again, like I said, product-led company, and in the product-led companies, talk about the product you've built, put screenshots of the apps, then also go into your GitHub, if it's GitHub that you guys used, or if it is whatever version control you guys use, put screenshots of the commits, right? Also, if it's, you're a product manager or a combination of engineer and product, you can put evidences of like your, what's that thing that product managers do? Your PRDs, right? How you came up with the idea of the product, the PRDs submitted, the evolution. You can also put screenshots of your Jira, right? You can put screenshots of your Jira or whatever. So if it's linear, you guys are using stuff that you're in charge of and all of those different things. You can put screenshots. Like again, it's just proof that you did all of these things for this company. And it doesn't have to be one company. You can do it for multiple companies. Like, oh, I did for BitNob, I did for this, I did for this, I worked here and this. Put all those screenshots, put the proof in there. So you don't have to be an extrovert. If you're an extrovert, it's easy because you can have public work is easy to verify. But if you are an introvert, like some of my friends, you go the product-led approach and make sure you have those evidences, like I've told you already, like the screenshots of, whatever, if it is the product tool you're using, or if it's GitHub you're contributing to, the commit, you can go and also check, GitHub has where you can see the number of commits people have used, the graph over time, put all of those things, put how you contributed to the product, right? And all of those things, and that will help because I've seen people do that.
Right. I can see somebody raising his hand, but we're not taking question right now. So give us a couple of minutes before we get into a question. Another thing that we've seen is referee recommendation letter. There have been quite a number of conversations around how do I even get a referee? How do I get somebody who is going to, stand in that gap for me? At what point do I submit a recommendation letter? Right? Can you distinguish between the recommendation letter and the referee, and how would you advise somebody who is just 3 years into tech who wants to apply for this to go about getting a referee?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
A referee, right, is one of the most important things during when you're applying for this. You've also mentioned it, right? How would you advise somebody who is 3 years or maybe 4 years into tech or a software engineer into going about applying?
I don't know if it's my network. I can't hear you again.
I can hear feedback from you. Can everybody hear me? You
If
can
it's my
just
network.
that's okay. Okay, yeah. So Ikichi can hear me. I think it's Prosper's network. We can just give him a minute to get that. Please, if you have any question, please you can type it. We will take the question via chat. So leave your questions in the chat, and we are going to answer that after I'm done having conversations with Prosper. In the meantime, I hope everybody's enjoying the conversation. You're learning, you're picking one or two things. For those who would like to listen to this again, the video is going to be available on the YouTube channel. You can check it out and just take your time in listening to some of the things that Prosper has to say. Prosper is back.
I don't know what happened. It just stopped and went off.
It's most likely the network, but it's fine. We're glad to have you back. So my
Okay.
question was around referee, right? How
Okay.
for a young developer who wants to apply for global tech talent, how should they go about getting a referee, right? For you, somebody in the audience would say, oh, but it might be pretty easy for Prosper because he's already a big guy in the ecosystem. He already has founded a company. He has worked with so many other people. But so let's give a case study of somebody who has just worked with one company, right? Let's say an engineer at BitNob. 3 years at BitNob, they want to apply. And they are an introvert, for example, so they've not networked. They have GitHub profile. They've probably spoken at a couple of conferences. They've probably even written articles and stuff like that, but they do not know how to reach out to people who can vouch for them. What would you say would be the process of that?
For example, if you have worked at BitNob for 3 years, again, anybody that is applying for this promise, at least My recommendation is that make sure you have worked in a company for at least 2.5 or 3 years. 2.5 or 3 years. Like if you're just starting 1 year, don't bother, because you're just it's going to be futile. You can try, but is not, just like take your time first. Like make sure you have worked at least 2 or 3 years. So if you have worked at least 2.5 years or 3 years in a company or multiple companies at Bitnob, at least you can have recommendation from, because when they're looking for recommendation, they want a recommendation from either from a very senior person, C-level person, or director level person. So it either has to come from your co-founders or it has to come from your boss, but your boss too has to be uh, as a senior person, like maybe either a CTO or a director or something like that. That's how you get those recommendations. So you can always talk to people within your company. Now, in my time, I don't know how many, whether it's still the same. Right now, when we were applying there, it was 3 recommendations. I don't know if it's still 3.
Still there right now, yes.
3 years, yeah. Okay,
Yes.
so if it is 3 recommendations, you can also look for people that have like see people outside of your company that can vouch for you. Now, those people that can vouch for you is either you talk to them and beg them to actually like look at your work, or it's people that have actually seen you work before. So if you have done if you have done a project for somebody before, maybe outside of your work, maybe like a side gig, and the person is a very senior person, then you can use that senior person, right? What I've seen some people to do is randomly reach out to people in the community. So, for example, I have done recognitions for a lot of people, but at some point I had to stop because it felt like they now knew my name in Technician. I was giving out a lot of recommendations, and it was not good because that was also affecting my own reputation. Because they're like, there's no way all these people worked under you, or there's no way you just know all these people. You're just giving them recommendation because you can, or you're trying to help. So make sure you're getting at least one from your company. Then, if you are reaching out to people, reach out to people that have seen your work before, or try to work with them for some time. Then work with them for some time on a side project or on their own work, and then they can now give you a recommendation. So, and those 3 recommendations have to be either their directors, their C-level engineering manager. No, if it's maybe a senior engineering manager, yes, senior engineering manager. Best has to be maybe has senior in his title, a C-level person or director or VP, right? Those people are the ones that can give you recommendation.
Awesome. Great. So I hear, especially for senior engineers that are here, one of the things they should also be careful about is having to give out recommendations a lot, especially for those who have gotten it, because
Exactly. You have to be
it
very
does,
careful. Yeah.
it does impact their own reputation as an individual. And for introvert or somebody who wants to apply for technician who is just 2 years, 3 years into the business, or being a software developer, you want to reach out to the C-level within your organization. And I mean, it is expected that you've interacted with people outside the organization. For example, it could be maybe a place you've been invited to come and speak, or a community that you've helped and you've spoken either as a guest lecturer or a guest tutor at those communities. You can also speak to those community leads, because that speaks to your impact within your contribution within the tech community and what you can do for the UK economy. Not everybody, as a matter of fact, I think I was scrolling through a couple of information around this, and just 3 out of 7 persons who apply for this get it. And it's not because the other 7 are not qualified. Maybe the entire 7 are not qualified, but couple of them have like great work they've done, but they didn't get the application. What would you say is some of the biggest reasons why a couple of applications have been turned down? And what should people look out for to make sure that they don't make the same mistake?
I don't know about now, but like I know that when they turn you down, they'll tell you the reason. They'll tell you the reason why they turn you down. So you
Yes,
will know.
they still do that.
Yeah.
They give you opportunity to be able to, I think you can reapply within a certain number of days, right? But not everybody who does reapply have been given, right? Just making sure that you do not go through that route in terms of you being rejected. What would you advise a software developer to look into?
Wait, are you asking for like the common mistakes that people make, or like
Yes,
I'm that's not the
some of the
question?
common mistakes to make sure that application is not denied?
So number one, again, for example, if you are going the product route, maybe you're not going the open source or community route, again, make sure that it's a core product company, else you reject it. Then I've seen people to go the community and open source route, but even you say, like when you look at your contributions, you know they are not enough. Sometimes you have to tell the truth, right? For example, you've done maybe 2 open source projects, or you have spoken in only 2 or 3 events, or you have organized only 1 community listing. That's not enough, right? That's basic, right? You need to be somebody that's organized a lot of meetups, or you need to be somebody that's spoken in at least 10 events or 7 events, right? Because again, let's not forget, this is global talent visa, right? I'm not trying to be classist or classism, right? That's why I'm saying that if you need to take your time, take your time. I'm just saying that it's global talent visa for a reason. If it was not global talent, everybody will get it. Again, everybody that is a tech person will just get it. And then it will no longer be a global talent visa. So it's global talent because they are looking for people that have really done a lot of work and we continue doing that work. Let's not forget it, because I've seen a lot of people apply like, oh yeah, I really want to move to the UK. So again, I'm seeing this question here where somebody says his friend got rejected twice. The applicant has not shown. And I'm sure they must have Googled this person. They must have Googled the person. They must have checked his LinkedIn. And the person probably went through the route of community, like, oh, I've spoken at this, I've done this, I've done this. And they checked everywhere. They checked Google, they checked Bing, they checked everywhere. They did not see anything. Or they probably saw 1 or 2. That's why they say he hasn't made any significant contributions to the wider technology community. So if you are going the community route, you're going I've spoken, I've helped the community, I've done stuff, it has to be significant. Like, for example, if you're speaking, I've spoken at least 10 to 20 events, right? With proof to show, like they can see it. And it's not events where it is it's all those meetup where 5 people or 10 people are there. Like events, like you spoke in a big conference, right? Or you spoke in a meetup that had at least 70 or 100 people in attendance, or at least 50, right? So those kind of stuff, right? Or, you spoke in conferences abroad, right? Maybe not in your country, right? Or you're a keynote speaker. I was keynote speaker in some conferences, so that helped too, right? Again, it has to be significant, right? Because they too, they just don't want to admit anybody. Like the UK now has been clamping down on immigrants, right? They literally just released a white paper recently, if you have been following the news, right? So they want people that, oh, this person is top person in his country. Those are the people they want to bring. So if you look at yourself and say, I'm not top person, but I am promising, right? Promise. There's exceptional talent and there's promising. If you're promising, it needs to be promising in a way that you can look at yourself like and say, Omo, I'm promising, right? Or somebody can look at you and say, this is the kind of person I want to endorse because this person is really promising, right? You can see the trajectory, that kind of stuff. So think about it, look at it yourself. If you were the one reviewing your application, would you approve yourself? You have to say the truth, right? Would you approve yourself? Like, I have 100 spots. There are 1,000 people applying. I want the best people. Will I approve myself if I submitted this application? You have to do that. And also make sure you like get your friends to look at it or senior people to look at your applications. Like tell people to review it so that you can see. So if senior people review it and say, this is not enough now, it's not enough. Yeah, because I've helped a lot of people review. I've reviewed like 10 or 20, and I look at it and I'm like, this is definitely not enough, right? So it's either you stay 1 more year and do more things, or let's go through your past and see other things that you have done that we can add to this thing.
Great. I mean, what I'm taking from this is learn to tell yourself the truth, look at yourself in the mirror and be candid about the quality of work you've done, and also look at the evidences you have right in front of you to ask yourself, if I'm the one who's supposed to give approval for this, will I approve myself? Right? You need to be candid up until that level because it's quite expensive, by the way. For those who are asking, for you to apply, it's quite expensive, right? You are definitely spending above ₦1 million in application, and if you get rejected, just move on. Like it's non-refundable. So in the process of you wanting to put your evidences and recommendations together, you have to be candid about yourself. As much as it is desirous to want to travel to the UK, relocate to the UK, again, you have to look at your pocket, the expenses, and ask yourself, am I really qualified for this role? And now that we're talking about approval and outcome, and when you got your endorsement, how long did it take you to get your visa?
It took like because when you get your endorsement, you're the one that will now go and apply for visa. So if you want to apply for visa immediately, fine. If you want to wait for some time and apply, fine, right? So me, I got my endorsement and I applied, I think, the next month. Normally, once you apply for the visa takes max 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but mine took 2 weeks and the visa will come out. Like, and again, once you have gotten the endorsement, you are 100% going to get the visa. The only way you're probably not going to get the visa is if you go for your tuberculosis test and you fail. Because there's this tuberculosis test you must do. They will do, you go to the hospital, they will, like, and they have approved hospitals. They will check your chest. They do, tuberculosis test. So you must pass that tuberculosis test, then get the certificate of the tuberculosis test and add it to the documents to apply with your visa. And in your visa, all you need to, when you apply for that visa, is the endorsement, the tuberculosis test, and what else? You don't need to add so much. It's just the endorsement, the tuberculosis test, and of course just the normal procedure to apply for a visa. You're not adding financial statement or all those things because you have already gotten an endorsement.
Right. One final question before we open up the ground for other people to ask questions. One of the reasons why people apply for this is because they want to relocate, obviously because of the opportunity, right? I want to ask, maybe based on your experience or other people that you know that have been endorsed, what specific opportunity does this global talent gives you when you actually leave the country? For quite a number of people, it is, I will still continue with my current job because I'm working with a global company. I can still continue. Are there really opportunities there apart from, you talked about travel? You get to get your visa a lot more approved than when you apply from Nigeria. What are the other opportunities that are there for people who want to apply?
I think there are a lot of opportunities in the UK, especially in terms of companies. And when you get into the UK, the UK companies are always looking for people to work, right? Like they're always looking for people to join companies. So one thing I can tell you for free is that there are a lot of conferences in the UK. Like conferences, there's DevOps days for DevOps engineers. In London, there are conferences in Manchester, I think. Most of the conferences happen in London though. So there are a lot of conferences that it's easier for you to attend now because you're in the UK. You can just take a train, take a bus, attend the event. There are a lot of conferences that you can attend or even apply to speak at. There are a lot of job opportunities for tech people. Again, tech people, you will get jobs. That's not even hard at all.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you've heard the job opportunity. People who love to attend conferences. Now you have quite a number of opportunities to be able to attend conferences in the UK. I'm going to open up the opportunity to be able to ask questions right now. I will first look at the chat and look at some of the questions that we've not answered. If you want to speak, you can raise your hand. Okay, William will be the first person I will be asking to speak. I'm unmuting you right now. Please, you can ask your question, William.
Hi, Prosper. Hi, Damilola. So, what I wanted to ask is just how can someone that, let's say, you have like 3 years experience, how can I start doing all these things? How can I start contributing? Maybe just open source. Let me use myself as a case study. So, when I started tech like 2 years, 2022. So I started writing about like different tech topics and every other thing. And over time, my channel and my Twitter kind of like grew from zero to about like 20,000. So I've been writing about like different tech topics. I've also like built my own different NPM packages, but the NPM packages they are not so popular, right? I built about like 20, but nothing popular, right? Contributed to just few open source that outside mine, just few, and yeah. So someone like me that just been volunteering and not being able to speak at events, how can I start doing that? How can I start reaching out to people to speak at events and start positioning myself as a leader in the global tech community?
Um, so I think there's no special answer, right? But just apply. That's what I did. Like if you want to speak at companies, at events, there are list of conferences online. You can just check for list of conferences in abroad or Nigeria. There's a list of conferences, and most conferences have what you call CFPs, right? Call for papers. So in that call for papers, you're the one that will submit like what you want to speak about. And there are also steps to make good CFPs. All these things are online, right? Where you write a good statement, write what you need the audience to learn about your topic, make it very interesting. Again, conferences or events are looking for interesting people to talk about it. And they're not even looking for years of experience. They're just looking, what have you done that is so special? Or what have you discovered that you think it would be nice for other people to know about? So submit CFPs. That's how I started to. Like, I just started submitting to these events. Like, I'll take what I've done or take what I think is nice, maybe one package I built, or what I think I'm doing for my company, or that I think other people should know about, right? Anything that's interesting in the company that you guys open sourced or you think people should know about. DevOps, very interesting. There are so many DevOps conferences and they're looking for new things that people have done in their DevOps or things approach that you think people can use to make things faster, better. Look for the list of conferences online, like apply. Back then, I used to be very vocal about Laravel. Some people might know. I don't know if there are OGs here on this call. Back then, I used to tweet a lot about Laravel. So, and because I used to tweet about a lot about Laravel, I got invited to Laravel conferences. I spoke at LaraCon US. I was meant to speak at LaraCon Europe, but not get visa. So things like that. If you also want to be somebody that people can start inviting, then you can become vocal. That's if you're not an introvert, right? You can use your social media to start talking about things that you you desire, that you work with every day, right? So if you work with PHP, you work with React, you work with Laravel, you work with Django, you work with Go, you can start talking about those things very frequently on your Twitter, right? Things that you think people should know about, tips and tricks, I think those things are easier now. You can put it in a nice screenshot, use beautiful tools. Like, hey, if you want to do this and this, and now everybody's talking about AI. I think AI is the stuff now. Like, so people are building MCP servers, right? You can start talking about MCPs. You can start talking about new interesting AI tools. You can start talking about how you can, all of those things, right? And when people see that and see that, oh, you have something to offer. Again, once you have something of value to offer, people want you to come and speak at their events. Like, hey, I see that you do this a lot. Come and tell us something interesting that we think people should know about. And just apply. Again, apply. Whether you have 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, nobody cares. As long as you have something to teach or something to offer that other people will listen, apply. That's it. Just
Awesome.
apply.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next hand is Isajao.
Okay.
William, you can just put down your hand. Isajao.
All right. All right. Thanks a lot for everything. Thanks, Prosper. So I sent on the chat that please, there are some of us that we've been so long in this game, So I've been a developer for over 20 years. Do you understand?
Nice.
So right now, I founded my own company. I have 2 different companies already. So I remember that time when we were just starting out, we're trying to look at what products can we do. It was about product. That was when it was starting. So Shola of Paystack is a friend of mine. We worked in ITSI. We done projects together. So I was doing a project. He was doing something else at that time. So hopefully my own project wasn't so forthcoming at that time, but I learned lessons. But he blew and we're happy and all that. So now I know you're focusing on developers. I was once a developer, but I have startups. So can you please talk a little bit about being a startup founder, that is global talent? So that's the first question. Then the second question, I've gone to projects. I've done projects, a lot of projects, websites, apps, and all that. So part of my clients is FCMB Pension, Natuno Foods. I had quite a lot of them because I'm the one hosting some of the servers and things like that. So, but I've not been vocal, and even to my kind of person, I don't talk. Even if you are in a meeting, a set is really, really important before I talk, not to talk of coming onto social media. So it's just recently that I now knew that, okay, I need to now put myself out there and I start to do this in bits. And the plus with the fact that when my company, one of them, we are software developers, we build apps and all that, then we started training recently. So I had to now, put people together to train people. Then lately we started AI. Do you understand? Learning to teach people about AI. In fact, one of the things we are trying to do is to do a national hackathon where people come together to build something. So we're still planning, that is still in the works. But all these, I've not been so vocal about it. So wouldn't it look somehow if I've been working for over 10 years, and all of a sudden you now start to put everything online. Won't they look at it as if maybe I'm trying to play some games? Do you understand?
I mean,
So those are my
in
two
my
questions.
opinion, someone like you should go through the founder and the product-based route, right?
Okay.
Again, when you apply, there are different, how do they put that in? There are different routes you can go through, right? Someone like you should go through product-based route and founder route. So if you have a company you've already created, add it. Talk about the products you have built in the past 5 to 10 years. Again, it must be recent. Like if it's 20 years ago, nobody's going to look at that, right? Because some of those systems might not even be online. Some might be online, right? Because like the tech industry changes a lot. But look at the products you have built in the past 5 years, most especially, are the ones you should add. And for someone like you that has, Shola as a friend, that should be your recommendation ASAP, right? Shola should be a recommendation. One of his friends can be a recommendation that can testify to it too. Then maybe one of the person that's worked in your company that's a senior person, right? Or if somebody has invested in your product before, that should be your recommendation, right? So if you are really an introvert, you don't have to come out and say you want to start putting things online, right? And you have done this thing for years. Just go through the product and founder-based route and you'll be fine.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that response, Prosper. AOD, I would like to ask a female. I can see. AOD, please go ahead. I will unmute you right now.
All right, thank you so much. Good evening. So my question is basically for the documentation process. And by documentation, I mean the parts where you are writing down the evidence, where you are putting the things you want to submit down. So while I was reading, I saw that every evidence that you are presenting has to be presented in not less than 3 pages. So I was wondering, how do you properly document? Let's say I want to talk about my speaking engagement that I had at DevFest Ubumosho, for an instance. How am I supposed to document that to fit into 3 pages? Does it mean, because what I'm currently doing is I tell like a story of how the whole thing happened, how I got to have the speaking engagement opportunity, how I was reached out to. The ones that I applied, I mention it. And then I attach a few pictures, and then I attach links that can lead whoever is going through the submission to the media. That's where maybe pictures were posted, or I got feedback from the session, or things like that. So I want to know, does that count? Is that okay? Or there's a different strategy that you advise that a person uses during the documentation in order to be able to fill the 3 pages that was stated in the, what's that thing called? The guide, the technician guide.
So again, back to what I've said, I'm sure they're asking for 3 pages now because they want enough evidence to prove that you have significant contribution. Right?
Okay.
So I'm trying to make sure everybody gets this thing as like I'm coming from the principle, what you call first, first principles, right? They give 3 pages so that you have enough evidence for significant stuff. If you carry your achievements and it's not to 3 pages, it simply means it's not significant enough, right? So, for example, you mentioned this place that you went to. You adding the story of you being how they invited you or how you added to speak, very unnecessary. They're just going to cut that part out because now they know that you're just trying to feel. What they really need is what's the link to the event? Can we see you speaking? Is there a recorded link? Now, if there's no recorded link, what is the link to the event where we can see the picture of where you are invited as a speaker? Is it online? Where they will just go to the website and they can like, oh, your name is there as a speaker. That has to be there. That link has to be there. If the recording is not there on YouTube or something. Now, I'll put pictures too of you speaking. Pictures of you speaking with the audience. Maybe 3 or 4 pictures, right? But again, that's just events. So by the time you do that, maybe you add to part of a page, right? But if you have spoken at like 6 events, you can see that will be a lot of evidence because now you put 6 links that shows your name that were invited as a speaker. You can put six YouTube recordings or wherever they recorded it and uploaded it that shows you speaking, and then you can now add pictures of you and it will fill those evidence. Again, if you start writing story, you know what they say now? They say when you are successful, you don't talk too much. When you're poor, you have enough explaining a lot. That's how it is. So by the time you start explaining a lot, you are shall of Yoruba people, sorry.
Show
Exactly.
workings, I
That means there's
guess.
nothing concrete here. That's why I explain it. It's like when they ask you on stand-up, what did you do? And you're explaining too much. You did not do anything. The people that did say, oh, I did this, check it here. Simple. Stand-up has finished. But by the time somebody starts explaining a lot, you just know that there's a problem. So just take that, use that to put in your evidences.
All right. Thank you so much. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Awesome. I guess the feedback from that is, they talk too much. Just go straight into
Show workings.
you've
Exactly.
done and just highlight some of the things you've done. We can take two more questions now because we are past our time. And I know I gave our Prosper a hard deadline, so I'm just going to choose at random. Ejiro, I would unmute you right now to speak. For others, please drop your question in the chat and we'll see how we can send you a response via email. Over to you, Ejiro.
All right, thanks. Hi everyone. Please confirm if you can hear me.
Yes.
All right, so Prosper, my question is, so I have some evidence on my Slack, on my previous company team Slack channel, but I forgot to screenshot them, but I took the reviews and the kudos and everything, and I put them on my website and I attached the person that gave the review to me. My question would be, is that still valid? Can I use that as evidence, or I've tampered with it already?
Sorry, can you repeat that again? I think I missed something.
All right, so my previous company, right? I was some reviews from my boss and some C-levels. But the thing is, I just took those reviews and went to put them on my website, right? I didn't take screenshots of them. So now my question is, can I still use that as evidence, those reviews? Because they only exist on my website and I don't know, there's no other place to verify if that was right.
So you can't use that. You can't use that because anybody can say you made that up and there's no way to prove it, that you did not make it up.
All right. Thank you very much. All right.
All right. David A. Please go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Prosper. Thank everyone. So my question is just simple. One of the things, can you hear me before I proceed, please?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, Prosper mentioned about having about 2 to 3 years of experience. I actually have put it in the chat box, but you probably missed it. So my question is, the 2 to 3 years or 4 years, does it have to be from a single company or it can be from an accumulation of companies we've worked with? For example, people who have done contract jobs, maybe contracts of 3 months, 6 months. So how do we handle such scenario that it's not up to like that 2, 3 years? Does it have to be a single company or 2, 3 companies together? Thank you.
Sorry, please repeat the question again. I got confused.
Okay, so I'm going to be direct with it now. For exceptional talents and promising talent, I think for exceptional, you have to have about 4 years of experience. Is that correct?
Maybe unless they've changed it for exceptional, at least 5 years.
Okay, 5 years. So and therefore promising about 3 years. So for the promising now, so let's say I've worked with different companies for the as an external talent. For the 3 years experience, does it have to be, do I have to stay at a single company for 3 years? Or it can be an accumulation of all the companies I've worked with. Let's say I work for company A, I spend 6 months there. I work for company B.
It can be all of the companies you have worked at. It can be all of it. It doesn't have to be a single company for 2 to 3 years. And 2 to 3 years is promise, so you can't.
Oh yeah, yes. Okay, very good. Thank you.
No problem.
Awesome. I will take our final question before we end. This is going to be the final one. Chidozie, please unmute. You can ask your question and we are going to round up after this.
I think one thing we did not mention is the cost implication. Like, have we talked about the cost? How much is this cost?
Oh, yes. I know at some point we mentioned it, but yes, you can please dive into Chidozie before you speak. Yes, let's talk about the cost, how much it costs to be able to do this.
Okay. So I know, like right now, for the application itself, right? When you're applying, I think the cost right now for one person is about 700 and something pounds. And then the cost for visa is about 200 and something pounds, right? Just so everything is about £1. However, However, after that, you have to pay what you call NHS charge, NHS fee. That's the most expensive for 3 years or 5 years. That's where it gets crazy because that NHS charge can now add up, everything can now add up to like £3,000, right? Or £4,000. So make sure you have money to when you're applying. FYI.
Money is very important.
Yeah.
Right, Chidozie, please go ahead, ask your question.
Okay, good evening, Promise. Prosper, sorry, not Promise. And good evening, every other person. So my question is, I'm getting my documentations and all. I think someone has asked part of the question, which is speaking engagement. That's the aspect I think is not my strong path. I've not like really done any speaking engagement. How do you think they consider the articles aspect of it? How do you think they consider that for people that have written articles, technical articles, about the experiences and also about the things that they've learned over the years? That's number one. Then number two, you mentioned something about product-led companies, right? So I've worked in a company like EEDC, which is an electric distribution company. My focus was actually building out the cash collection application, which is basically a product like it's a technology-led aspect of what they are doing. So I don't know, is that something I should put in my as my evidence, or I should leave it out so I don't mess up the process for myself?
I mean, as long as it's a product-led company that you did work for, you can add it. But if it is not a product-led company, please leave it out.
Okay.
If it's a consulting firm,
you mentioned that bank is not a product-led company. So I'm trying to marry it like, okay, this other aspect is it.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen people that added banks and they succeeded, unless you're adding banks and adding other product-led companies. Because if you're just adding only banks, there's a problem.
Yeah, right? That's the only company I worked with that is like a maybe for me.
Yeah, that might be a problem. But I mean, unless the bank can be classified as fintech, because fintech, if you work for fintech companies, like new generation banks like them, Kuda Bank and Co can qualify. But if you say Zenith Bank or like First Bank, I don't know if that might qualify. Maybe I'm the wrong person to talk about this. I don't know. Maybe the other people that might have used only bank and succeeded. So I'll just come out plain and say I'm not sure. Okay. But I know that if you work in fintech companies, it's like, for example, Paystack or Bitnob or any of these companies that is fintech. But banks, because banks do a lot of things, but banks too is financial tech. So maybe banks might work. It might work. You guys might have to verify.
Based on my research, just to give more context into Chidozie's question, based on my research, because a couple of people have asked this question, even when Global Talent is organizing their webinar, and one of the answers I can remember them saying is, if you work in a bank and you are specifically working on the mobile app of that bank, and you can prove that you worked on the mobile app of the bank, then you can be considered, right? But do your research a lot more about it. I know there have been conversations about this, and a couple of people have even asked that during their live webinar. So yeah, people who are working in the financial sector, they do not consider bank as a product-led company. But if you are able to convince them enough to say the bank has a mobile app, which is a product, and you specifically worked on that, and you're able to prove that you worked on that aspect of the bank, then you have a chance.
Okay. So the final question is about the recommendation. If like, can I get someone, because I have some guys that worked or started part of the starting founding members of Paystack. Can I ask those people to maybe write recommendation for me, or I should leave it to people I actually worked with? I know them, they are friends, but we never got to work together.
If they are senior people, like very senior people, and when I mean senior people in their roles, because they have to, when they are writing that recommendation, they have to put it there, like, CTO of this, director of this, VP of this. If they are senior people and can prove it, this, of course, you ask them.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
problem.
I think one more thing to put to that is that I can remember them talking about this last month to say anybody who you are using to write your recommendation letter, if that person applies for a technician, they should be able to get it. The person must be qualified enough to be able to get it,
That's a good
right?
one.
So you have
That's a good
because they go ahead and look at their CV also. They look at their LinkedIn, for example. Anybody who you are using as a reference or is writing a recommendation letter for you, you must make sure that if that person applies for global talent, the person gets it, right? And they are not exceptional promise; they are exceptional talents, right? The person must be able to get it definitely once, just like promise, right? So that's it. But I think we've had a very great conversation here today. Thank you so much, Prosper, for coming to this session and having to speak to our community.